Ambassador Thex-9 stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Confederation, her neural tendrils twitching with barely contained frustration. Around her, representatives from thousands of star systems murmured in their native tongues, all trying to process the impossible news that had just reached them from the outer rim. 7 months, she repeated, her voice carrying across the vast chamber through quantum translators. The NIGMA empire, which had dominated 17 sectors for over 3 millennia, has completely collapsed. And it's all because they ignored one simple warning. The Arcturian delegate raised his crystalline appendage. Ambassador Thex-9, surely you're exaggerating. The NIGMA military controlled over 400 worlds. Their fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. How could any single species? Because Thex-9 interrupted, they made the fatal mistake of enslaving humans. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew about humans by now. After the mythological species incident at the Andromeda Academic Collective had gone viral across galactic networks, humans had become something of a curiosity, a species so improbable they had been considered fictional until they showed up in person. Fleet Admiral Korth of the Vegan Defense Force leaned forward in his biomechanical suit. Ambassador, my intelligence reports suggested humans were a primitive species. Recent FTL capability, limited to their home system and a few nearby colonies. How could they possibly threaten an empire like NIGMA? Thex-9 activated the chamber's central holographic display, showing the NIGMA empire's territory as it had existed 8 months ago, a sprawling network of conquered worlds forming a dark stain across 17 sectors. Let me take you back to the beginning, she said. 3 months after first contact protocols were established with Earth, NIGMA scouts detected human colony ships in what they considered their expansion zone. Standard procedure for NIGMA was simple: enslave the inhabitants, strip mine the worlds, move on. The display shifted to show NIGMA warships surrounding a small human research station near Proxima Centauri. They captured 47 human scientists and support staff. According to intercepted transmissions, the NIGMA empire's response was typical. They sent demands to Earth: surrender all human colonies, or the hostages would be sold to the flesh markets of Andromeda. Senator Vix of the Rigel Coalition made a disgusted whistling sound. The flesh markets were shut down by galactic law centuries ago. NIGMA never cared much for galactic law, Thex-9 replied grimly. But here's where it gets interesting. Earth's response wasn't what anyone expected. The hologram showed Earth's modest fleet, fewer than 200 ships total, most of them exploration vessels, retrofitted with basic defensive capabilities. Instead of surrendering, the humans sent a single message to NIGMA High Command. I've had it translated into Standard Galactic. We strongly advise you to return our people unharmed. We have no desire for conflict, but we will respond appropriately to any harm caused to our citizens. The assembly erupted in confused murmurs. That sounded like a surrender wrapped in diplomatic language. NIGMA Emperor Vorth Prime interpreted this exactly as you'd expect, Thex-9 continued. Weakness. Cowardice. He ordered the immediate execution of 5 hostages and broadcast the murders across human communication networks as a demonstration of NIGMA power. Fleet Admiral Korth frowned. That should have ended it. Humans would retreat. NIGMA would expand into human space. Business as usual. That, said Thex-9, is where everyone underestimated what humans call their spite capacity. The holographic display shifted to show something unprecedented in galactic military history: human civilian vessels being retrofitted at an impossible pace. Within 2 weeks of the hostage executions, every human settlement in 37 systems had begun retrofitting civilian ships with weapons. Not military-grade weapons. They didn't have the infrastructure for that. They used mining charges, construction equipment, modified fusion reactors, and something they called improvised explosive devices. The Arcturian delegate leaned forward. Surely NIGMA's professional military could handle civilian vessels. You would think so, Thex-9 replied. But humans did something no species in recorded galactic history has ever done. They stopped following the established rules of interstellar warfare. The display showed the first human retaliation raid, if it could be called that. Instead of targeting military installations or strategic assets, human ships had surrounded NIGMA, agricultural world, and begun systematically destroying their food production facilities. They didn't attack military targets initially. They targeted infrastructure, food production, water purification, power generation. They made it clear that NIGMA's civilian population would starve unless the hostages were returned. Senator Vix made a shocked chirping sound. That's considered a war crime under 17 different galactic conventions. Humans weren't signatories to those conventions, Thex-9 pointed out. And they made another tactical choice that baffled NIGMA military command. They used suicide attacks. The chamber fell silent. Not because they wanted to die, she clarified quickly, but because they realized that NIGMA shield technology couldn't stop ships that were deliberately trying to crash into targets. Human pilots would ram their vessels directly into NIGMA warships, taking out vessels 10 times their size. Fleet Admiral Korth's mechanical breathing apparatus wheezed in what might have been distress. That's tactically unsound. The loss ratios alone would be catastrophic for any normal species, Thex-9 agreed. But humans weren't operating under normal parameters. They were angry. And it turns out that angry humans are willing to accept casualty rates that would cause any rational species to surrender immediately. The hologram showed the progression of conflict. NIGM, a world's going dark one by one, as humans systematically destroyed their infrastructure. NIGMA fleets being picked apart by suicidal civilian vessels, and most disturbing of all, human raids becoming increasingly sophisticated and coordinated. By month 3, humans had developed what they called guerrilla warfare tactics, specifically designed for space combat. Small groups of human ships would attack supply lines, retreat before reinforcements arrived, then strike somewhere else entirely. NIGMA military doctrine had no counter for this, because no civilized species fights this way. The display showed NIGMA's last stand, their fortress world of Terminus Prime, previously considered impregnable, surrounded by a ragtag fleet of human vessels that looked like they'd been assembled in someone's garage. The final assault was unprecedented, Thex-9 said quietly. Humans crashed a modified asteroid mining ship directly into Terminus Prime's planetary shield generator. The impact was equivalent to a small moon collision. The shield collapsed, the planet's defense grid went offline, and human ground forces landed within hours. Ground forces? Squeaked the Regalian senator. They invaded? They invaded, Thex-9 confirmed. And they brought their dogs. Several assembly members made confused sounds. Dogs had become legendary across the galaxy after the mythological species incident, but their role in warfare was unclear. Apparently, dogs can track NIGMA personnel by scent, even through their environmental suits. Human soldiers used them to hunt down every NIGMA official on Terminus Prime. Emperor Vorth Prime was found hiding in a bunker 3 kilometers underground, betrayed by what humans call a very good boy named Sergeant Biscuits. The aftermath hologram showed the complete collapse of NIGMA territory, worlds declaring independence, slave populations revolting, and the remaining NIGMA fleets scattered across uncharted space. The final death toll was staggering, Thex-9 concluded. NIGMA lost approximately 40 million military personnel and civilians. Humans lost about 200,000, mostly volunteers, who knew they were likely to die. Fleet Admiral Korth leaned back in his biosuit. How is such a loss ratio possible? Because humans treat warfare the way most species treat natural disasters, as something terrible that must be endured at any cost until it's over. They don't fight to minimize casualties, they fight to win, regardless of price. The Arcturian delegate's voice was barely a whisper. And the surviving NIGMA forces? Scattered to the cosmic winds, Thex-9 replied. Some have requested asylum with various governments. Others have simply disappeared. But here's the most disturbing part. The humans have made it clear that any attempt to reform the NIGMA empire will result in what they call a more thorough response. More thorough? Senator Vix asked weakly. Thex-9 nodded grimly. According to human diplomatic channels, their response to the NIGMA empire was considered restrained because they wanted to minimize civilian casualties. They've indicated that if provoked again, they might not be so considerate. The assembly sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. A species had emerged from the galactic backwaters and single-handedly dismantled one of the oldest empires in known space in 7 months. This, announced Thex-9, is why I called this emergency session. We need to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity immediately. And we need to make absolutely certain that we never, ever give them a reason to be angry with us. The vote was unanimous.